You're in my way.
You're mine tonight.
I don't belong to anyone.
The champagne glass trembled in her hand the moment their eyes locked across the Parisian ballroom. Lindiwe Khumalo had faced ruthless investors, hostile takeovers, and cutthroat competitors, but nothing prepared her for the way Yoon Jae-won looked at her. Like he wanted to devour her whole and savor every second of it. He moved through the crowd with predatory grace, tattoos peeking from beneath his tailored sleeve, eyes never leaving hers. When he finally stood before her, the air between them crackled with something dangerous and intoxicating. "You're in my way," she breathed, though neither of them had moved. His lips curved into a devastating smile as he leaned close enough for her to feel his warmth. "You're mine tonight," her pulse thundered. "I don't belong to anyone. Yet." His thumb grazed her wrist where her racing heartbeat betrayed her. "But you will." Everything she'd built, everything she'd fought for, suddenly felt less important than closing the distance between them. And that terrified her more than losing everything. Lovers, welcome to Afro-Seoul TV, where we bring you stories between two worlds, beyond all borders. You've just felt that electric pull. That's exactly what we promise. Tear-jerkers, heartbreakers, and game-changers. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from so we know how far Lindy and Jae-won's dangerous obsession will travel. Trust us, this story will have your heart racing and your screen steaming. Now let's dive into how these two collided. 3 hours earlier, Lindiwe had stepped into the grand ballroom of the Hotel Plaza Athénée with one goal: secure Casa Bellini. The legendary Italian fashion house was the missing piece that would transform Sahara Luxe from a successful luxury brand into a global empire. She'd spent 5 years building her company from the ground up, turning African-inspired beauty and fashion into something the world couldn't ignore. Casa Bellini was her ticket to immortality in the industry. The gala glittered with Paris Fashion Week's elite, designers, buyers, investors, and socialites who treated these events like blood sport. Lindiwe moved through the crowd with practiced grace, her emerald gown hugging every curve of her voluptuous figure. She knew she looked good. New heads turned as she passed, knew her presence alone was a statement, a successful black woman from South Africa commanding space in rooms that had historically excluded her. She accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter and surveyed the room with strategic precision. There, Alessandro Bellini himself, the aging patriarch who still controlled every decision at Casa Bellini despite his son's attempts to modernize. He was surrounded by admirers, but she'd get her moment. She always did. Lindiwe Khumalo. A warm voice interrupted her planning. She turned to find Delphine Rousseau, one of Sahara Luxe's French investors, air-kissing both her cheeks. "You look absolutely radiant. That gown is stunning." "Thank you, Delphine." Lindy smiled genuinely. Delphine had believed in Sahara Luxe when others dismissed it as too niche. "Is your husband here?" "Laurent is networking somewhere." Delphine waved dismissively. "But darling, you must tell me, is it true? Are you really pursuing Casa Bellini?" "Where did you hear that?" "The fashion world is small, chérie. Everyone's talking about it. Alessandro is finally ready to partner, and every major house wants in." Delphine leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "But there's a new player, someone unexpected." Lindy's instincts prickled. "Who?" Eclipse Atelier, the Korean luxury brand. Their CEO arrived in Paris this morning, and apparently Alessandro invited him personally. Delphine's eyes sparkled with gossip-fueled excitement. "I hear he's devastatingly handsome and absolutely ruthless in business. Yoon's something." Ice slid down Lindy's spine even as heat flared in her chest. Eclipse Atelier. She knew the name. a rising force in Asian luxury markets, blending traditional Korean aesthetics with cutting-edge design. They were ambitious, aggressive, and increasingly global in their reach. Competition. Yoon Jae-won? Lindy said quietly, recognition clicking into place. She had researched every potential rival for Casa Bellini's favor. Jae-won had built Hanel from his family's small textile business into a powerhouse in less than a decade. His methods were sometimes questioned, his connections occasionally whispered about, but his success was undeniable. That's him. Delphine squeezed Lindy's arm. Oh, this will be fascinating. Two gorgeous, brilliant entrepreneurs fighting for the same prize. Very sexy. It's business, Delphine. Business is always sexy when beautiful people are involved. Delphine winked. Now, I must go find Laurent before he drinks too much and embarrasses us. Good luck, darling, though something tells me you won't need it. Lindy watched. Her go, mind already recalibrating strategies. She'd planned for competition, but Eclipse Atelier complicated things. Casa Bellini wanted a partner who could bridge markets. African luxury and European heritage had obvious synergy. But Asian aesthetics and Italian craftsmanship? That was equally compelling. She needed to see this Yoon Jae-won for herself. Needed to assess the threat. As if summoned by her thoughts, the energy in the room shifted. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Heads turned toward the entrance, and Lindiwe's breath caught in her throat. He stood in the doorway like he owned it. Tall, broad-shouldered, devastating in a black suit that was tailored to perfection. But it was the details that made her pulse race. Tattoos peeked from his collar and cuffs, intricate and beautiful, a rebellion against the conservative formality of old money fashion. His face was all sharp angles and sculpted beauty, the kind that belonged on magazine covers and in dangerous fantasies. His hair was styled with casual precision, and when his gaze swept the room with calm assessment, Lindy felt the weight of intelligence and calculation behind those dark eyes. Yoon Jae-won, it had to be. And then his eyes found hers across the crowded ballroom, and the world narrowed to just that moment. That connection, that instantaneous, electric recognition of something that shouldn't exist but did anyway. He didn't look away. Neither did she. The air between them charged with an awareness that defied logic and distance and every rational thought in her head. Her champagne glass trembled in her hand. He moved through the crowd with predatory grace, never breaking eye contact, and she realized with startling clarity that he was coming for her. Not toward her. For her. Like she was prey and he was something beautiful and lethal. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She should move, should circulate, should focus on Alessandro and the deal and everything she'd come here to accomplish. But she couldn't move. Could only watch as Yoon Jae-won closed the distance between them with devastating purpose. When he finally stood before her, close enough that she could see the golden flecks in his dark eyes and smell the subtle cologne that made her want to lean closer, the air crackled with something dangerous and intoxicating. "You're in my way," she breathed, though neither of them had moved. His lips curved into a smile that promised sin and salvation in equal measure. "You're mine tonight," her pulse thundered. "I don't belong to anyone. Yet." His thumb grazed her wrist where her racing heartbeat betrayed her. The touch was electric, possessive, gentle enough to be devastating. "But you will." She should pull away, should establish boundaries, should remind him and herself that they were competitors, not whatever this heat between them suggested. Instead, she heard herself say, "You're very confident for someone who doesn't know my name." Lindiwe Khumalo, VP of Sahara Lux, built your company from a single boutique in Johannesburg to an international brand in 5 years. Graduated top of your class from London Business School. Your father was Daniel Khumalo, whose import business was destroyed by a corporate takeover when you were 19. His voice was smooth, intimate, devastating in its thoroughness. You've spent every day since building something that can't be taken away, and now you want Casa Bellini to cement your legacy. The casual recitation of her life, including the painful parts she never discussed, should have angered her. Should have felt like violation. Instead, it felt like being seen. Really seen, and that was more terrifying than anything. You did your homework, she said, keeping her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. Always. His hand was still on her wrist, thumb drawing lazy circles over her racing pulse. Just like you did yours on me. So we both know what we're dealing with. Do we? She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated, even as her body betrayed her by leaning infinitesimally closer. What am I dealing with, Mr. Yoon? Jae-won. His name on his lips sounded like an invitation. And you're dealing with someone who wants the same thing you do. Casa Bellini, global dominance. Legacy. He paused, eyes darkening. And apparently, you. The last word hung between them like a lit match near gasoline. We're competitors, she said, more to remind herself than him. I know. Casa Bellini is mine. We'll see. He finally released her wrist, but the loss of contact felt like deprivation. Tell me, Lindiwe, do you always get what you want? Always. So do I. He gestured to the bar with casual elegance. Drink with me. Let's discuss terms of engagement. There are no terms. This isn't a negotiation. Everything's a negotiation. He was already guiding her through the crowd with a hand at the small of her back that burned through silk. She should resist, should make a scene, should do anything except follow him like her body had its own agenda separate from her brain. They reached the bar, and Jae-won ordered for both of them without asking her preference. 2 glasses of your Chateau Margaux, 2015. Presumptuous, she observed. Efficient. The bartender poured rich red wine into crystal glasses. Jae-won handed her one, and their fingers brushed during the exchange. Electricity shot up her arm. 2 worthy opponents. She should refuse the toast, should walk away, should focus on Alessandro and the actual goal of the evening. Instead, she clinked her glass against his. To inevitable disappointment. Yours, not mine. His laugh was rich and genuine, crinkling the corners of his eyes in a way that made him even more devastating. I like you. That's going to make this complicated. Make what complicated? Destroying you professionally while wanting you personally. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather, but his eyes burned with intensity that stole her breath. You won't destroy me. No? He leaned against the bar, close enough that their shoulders touched. The casual contact felt deliberate, possessive. What makes you so sure? Because I'm better than you. She sipped her wine, holding his gaze. Sahara Lux represents everything Casa Bellini needs. A bridge to African markets they've never successfully penetrated, authentic cultural fusion, and a CEO who understands both luxury and accessibility. What does Hanul offer except expensive minimalism and a CEO with questionable business practices? Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, respect, maybe anger. Questionable? I did my homework too, Jae-won. She savored his name, watched him react to hearing it on her lips. Hanul's meteoric rise came fast. Too fast. There are rumors about your family's connections, about deals that happened behind closed doors, about competitors who mysteriously withdrew from markets you wanted to enter. His jaw clenched. Rumors aren't facts. Neither is innocence until proven. She tilted her head, studying him with the same analytical precision she applied to business deals. So tell me, should I be worried about you or just competitive with you? The question hung between them, loaded with more than professional concern. She was asking about his character, his methods, whether the man behind the devastating exterior was someone she could respect or someone she should fear. He set his wine glass down carefully, deliberately, then turned to face her fully. You want the truth? Always. My family built Hanoi on hard work and sacrifice. But we're not saints. We've made deals that skirted ethical lines. We've used connections that others might call corrupt. We've played dirty when necessary. His honesty was brutal, refreshing. But I've never destroyed someone who didn't deserve it, never ruined a family's livelihood for profit. Never built my empire on the backs of people who couldn't fight back. Can you say the same? She thought of her own climb, the compromises she'd made, the ruthlessness required to succeed as a black woman in an industry that didn't want her. We all have blood on our hands in this business. Then we understand each other. He reached out, tucking a loose curl behind her ear with devastating gentleness. His fingers lingered on her neck, thumb grazing her jawline. So the question isn't whether we're good people, Lindiwe. The question is whether we're going to destroy each other trying to win Casa Bellini, or if there's another way. Her breath caught. What other way? I don't know yet. His hand slid down to cup her face, and she couldn't remember deciding to lean into his palm. But I'm smart enough to recognize when something rare happens, and this... His thumb brushed her lower lip, and heat pooled low in her belly. This is rare. This is dangerous, she whispered. Same thing. He leaned closer, his lips hovering near hers, close enough that she could feel his breath. Dance with me. What? They're playing a waltz. Dance with me before we go back to being enemies. She should refuse, should maintain professional boundaries, should remember that he was competition and nothing more. But when he offered his hand, she took it. He led her to the dance floor with confident grace, and when he pulled her into his arms, everything else faded. His hand splayed possessively on her lower back. Her fingers rested on his shoulder, feeling the muscle beneath expensive fabric. They moved together like they'd been doing this for years, finding rhythm and sync that shouldn't have been possible between strangers. You're a good dancer, she observed breathlessly. My mother insisted on lessons, said a gentleman should know how to lead. His lips curved near her ear, sending shivers down her spine. But I prefer when my partner matches me. When she challenges me, when she makes me work for it. Is that what I'm doing? You tell me. He spun her expertly, then pulled her back against his chest with controlled strength, her back pressed to his front, his arm wrapped around her waist, and they swayed together in a position that was too intimate for a public dance floor but somehow perfect. His breath heated her neck. Are you challenging me, Lindiwe? Or are you feeling what I'm feeling and trying to resist it? She couldn't answer. Couldn't admit that her body had never responded to someone like this. That she wanted to turn in his arms and finally close the distance between their lips. That Casa Bellini suddenly felt less important than figuring out what this electricity meant. I need air, she said abruptly, pulling away before she did something irreversible. She didn't wait for his response. Didn't look back to see if he followed. She just moved through the crowd with single-minded determination, through the terrace doors and into the cool Parisian night. The city glittered before her, the Eiffel Tower a beacon of light, the Seine winding through ancient streets, the romance of Paris wrapping around her like a drug. She gripped the stone balustrade, needing something solid to anchor her when everything felt unsteady. Running away? His voice came from directly behind her, close enough that she felt his warmth through thin silk. She didn't turn around. Getting perspective. On what? On why I'm letting a beautiful face distract me from the most important deal of my career. Beautiful face. She heard the smile in his voice. I'll take that as a compliment. Don't. But she couldn't help the small smile curving her own lips. Your ego is already sufficiently inflated. He moved beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Close enough that she could see his tattoos more clearly now. Intricate designs that looked like a phoenix rising from flames along his forearm. disappearing beneath his sleeve. The artistry was stunning. "What do they mean?" she asked, gesturing to the ink. "Your tattoos." He glanced down, surprised by the question. "Rebirth, transformation, rising from the ashes of what my family almost lost." His voice softened. "My father built Hanol, but he almost destroyed it too through bad decisions and worse partnerships. When I took over, the company was hemorrhaging money and credibility. The tattoos remind me what we survived, what I'll never let happen again." The vulnerability in his admission caught her off guard. This wasn't the ruthless CEO Delphine had warned about. This was a man who'd carried the weight of family legacy and nearly broken under it. "My father lost everything to a Korean conglomerate," she heard herself say, shocking herself with the admission. "They bought his import business, gutted it for assets, then threw him away like garbage. He never recovered, died 5 years later with nothing." Jae-won turned to face her, fully, understanding dawning in his eyes. "And now you're here, competing against another Korean businessman for your legacy. The irony isn't lost on you." Not for a second. She finally looked at him, really looked at him, seeing past the devastating exterior to the complexity beneath. "So you understand why I can't lose this? Why Casa Bellini isn't just business for me. It's proof that what they did to my father won't define me, that I'm more than the daughter of a man they destroyed." "I understand." His hand came up, hovering near her face like he was afraid to touch her. "But Lindiwe, you need to know something. You asked if you should fear me or just compete with me. The answer is both. Because I'm not backing down from Casa Bellini. I can't. My family, my employees, my entire legacy depends on this deal. I will fight you with everything I have." I expected nothing less. But his thumb finally made contact, grazing her cheek with devastating tenderness. "I also need you to know that this thing between us, whatever it is, it's real. And it terrifies me because wanting you feels like weakness, feels like giving you ammunition to destroy me. But I can't seem to stop." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "We can't do this." "I know. We're enemies." "I know that too." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" Her voice cracked. "Why are you making this so hard?" "Because you're looking at me the same way." His forehead touched hers, and the intimacy of it nearly undid her. "Because I see you, Lindiwe. All of you. The brilliant strategist, the wounded daughter, the ambitious empress, the woman who's so scared of losing control that she won't let anyone close. I see you, and I want all of it." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "You don't know me? Then let me." His lips were a breath away from hers now, hovering in the space between possibility and disaster. "Let me know you. Let me—" Her phone buzzed violently in, her clutch shattering the moment. She jerked back, gasping like she'd been underwater, and fumbled for the device. An unknown Italian number lit up the screen. "I have to take this," she said, voice shaking. Jae-won stepped back, giving her space but not leaving. His eyes stayed locked on hers, dark with unfulfilled promise. "Ms. Khumalo, this is Alessandro Bellini." The cultured Italian accent was unmistakable. "I hope I'm not disturbing your evening." She forced professionalism into her voice despite her racing heart. "Not at all, Signor Bellini. It's an honor. The honor is mine. I've been watching you this evening, your grace, your confidence, the way you command attention without demanding it. Very impressive." Beside her, Jae-won's expression shifted, understanding immediately who was calling. "I'm calling with an invitation," Alessandro continued. "Casa Bellini is hosting an intimate weekend at our family estate in Tuscany. A chance for our most promising potential partners to experience our heritage, understand our vision, meet our family. We'd be honored if you'd join us." Her mind raced, even as she kept her voice warm. "I'd be delighted, Signor Bellini. Thank you for considering Sahara Lux." Consider it mutual consideration. This weekend will be decisive, Miss Khumalo. By Monday, we'll have chosen our partner. I hope to learn whether Sahara Lux and Casa Bellini share not just business synergy, but soul synergy. The poetic language was distinctly Italian. My assistant will send details within the hour. Pack for warm weather and intimate conversations. The call ended. Lindy lowered the phone slowly, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. Let me guess, Jae-won said quietly. Tuscany. This weekend. She met his eyes. You too? 10 minutes ago, while you were dancing with that French couple. His smile was tight. Alessandro's gathering his final candidates. We'll be spending 3 days together in the Italian countryside, competing for his approval. The reality settled over her like a weight. 3 days in close quarters with this man who made her feel reckless. 3 days pretending this pull between them didn't exist. 3 days fighting for everything while fighting against wanting him. Think you can handle it? She asked, voice steadier than she felt. His smile turned predatory, dangerous. The question is whether you can. 3 days, Lindiwe. 3 days of me watching you, wanting you, fighting you. 3 days of you pretending you don't feel exactly what I feel. He stepped closer, voice dropping to something intimate and threatening. You're mine tonight, I said. I meant it. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually you'll stop running, and when you do, I'll be waiting. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her alone with racing pulse and trembling hands, and the terrifying certainty that he was right. She was already his. She just hadn't surrendered yet. But Tuscany was 3 days. 3 days where anything could happen. 3 days where everything would change. The Tuscan sun burned like a promise against Lindy's skin as the car wound through cypress-lined roads toward Casa Bellini's estate. She'd barely slept on the flight from Paris, her mind replaying every moment with Jae-won. His touch on her wrist, his breath against her neck, the way he'd looked at her like she was already his. Dangerous thoughts for a woman who couldn't afford distraction. The villa appeared like something from a dream. Ancient stone walls covered in climbing roses, terracotta roofs glowing golden in afternoon light, vineyards stretching endlessly toward rolling hills. It was romantic and intimidating in equal measure, the kind of place where centuries of family legacy lived in every stone. Alessandro Bellini himself greeted the arriving guests on the circular drive, his silver hair and tailored linen suit embodying effortless Italian elegance. Miss Khumalo, welcome, welcome. He kissed both her cheeks with grandfatherly warmth. The drive from Florence wasn't too tiresome, I hope. It was beautiful, Lindy said honestly, returning his smile even as her eyes scanned the other arriving vehicles, looking for one person in particular. You're among the last to arrive. Most of our guests are already settling in. Alessandro gestured toward the villa. My assistant Francesca will show you to your room. We'll gather for aperitivo at 7, dinner at 8. Dress comfortably. We're family here this weekend. Family. The word carried weight, a reminder that Casa Bellini wasn't just choosing a business partner, but someone who'd integrate into their legacy. Francesca, an efficient woman in her 40s, led Lindy through marble hallways adorned with Renaissance art and family portraits spanning generations. You're in the East Wing, Miss Khumalo, one of our finest guest suites with views of the vineyards. They climbed a grand staircase, turned down a corridor, and Francesca stopped at an ornate wooden door. Here we are. If you need anything... A door opened directly across the hall. Lindy's breath caught as Yoon Jae-won stepped out, clearly having just arrived himself. He wore casual linen pants and a half-unbuttoned white shirt that showed the phoenix tattoo rising from his collarbone, and the sight of him in something other than a suit was devastatingly intimate. Their eyes locked. Mr. Yoon, Francesca said pleasantly, oblivious to the sudden charge in the air. Perfect timing. Your neighbors this weekend. Ms. Khumalo, Mr. Yoon. Mr. Yoon, Ms. Khumalo. We've met, Jae-won said, voice smooth as aged whiskey. His eyes traveled over Lindy with unhurried appreciation, her travel-rumpled silk blouse, her curves in fitted pants, the loose curls escaping her ponytail. Good to see you again, Lindiwe. The casual use of her first name felt possessive. Jae-won. She kept her voice cool despite her racing pulse. What a coincidence. Neighbors. No such thing as coincidence. His smile was all sharp edges. Just destiny making itself clear. Francesca looked between them with sudden interest. Well, how lovely. I'll leave you both to settle in. Remember, aperitivo at 7 in the garden terrace. She disappeared down the corridor, leaving them alone in the hallway with just a few feet and 1,000 unspoken words between them. Did you arrange this? Lindy asked. The rooms? Jae-won laughed, low and rich. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Alessandro's assistant made the arrangements. He leaned against his doorframe, all casual confidence. Though I can't say I'm disappointed. Knowing you're just across the hall, that's going to make sleeping very difficult. Heat flushed through her. We're here for business. Keep telling yourself that. His eyes darkened. But tell me, Lindiwe, did you think about me last night? After Paris? Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. Couldn't stop imagining what would have happened if that phone call hadn't interrupted us on the balcony. She should go inside. Should slam her door and establish boundaries. Should do anything except stand here, letting him look at her like he was memorizing every detail. I thought about the deal, she lied, about how I'm going to win Casa Bellini. Liar. But he said it gently, almost fondly. Your pulse is racing. I can see it from here. He pushed off the door frame, closing the distance between them until she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. 3 days, remember? I told you anything could happen, and I always keep my promises. Before she could respond, he turned and walked back into his room, closing the door with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam. Lindy stood there for a long moment, heart hammering, before finally escaping into her own suite. The room was gorgeous. 4-poster bed with crisp white linens, antique furniture, French doors opening onto a balcony overlooking vineyards that stretched to the horizon. Romantic and intimate, and far too close to where Jae-won was sleeping. She could hear him moving around through the shared wall. Water running, footsteps, the rustle of clothing. Every sound felt invasive and intimate, a reminder that only inches of ancient stone separated them. This was going to be torture. She unpacked mechanically, showered, changed into a flowing sundress for aperitivo, and tried to focus on strategy. There would be other competitors here. She'd need to assess them, understand what they were offering, position Sahara Lux as the clear choice. She couldn't let Jae-won distract her from the goal, but when she stepped onto the garden terrace at 7 and saw him already there, talking easily with Alessandro in the golden evening light, looking unfairly beautiful in dark linen with his tattoos on full display, every strategic thought evaporated. Their eyes met across the terrace, and his conversation with Alessandro faltered mid-sentence. "Ah, Ms. Khumalo," Alessandro exclaimed, gesturing her over. Come, let me introduce you to everyone." The next hour passed in a blur of names and faces. The other potential partners Alessandro had invited. There was Svetlana Volkov, a severe Russian fashion magnate, brothers Enzo and Luca Moretti, who ran a successful Milanese design house, and Priya Sharma, whose Mumbai-based luxury brand was expanding globally. All formidable, all hungry, all watching Lindy and Jae-won with knowing eyes whenever they were in proximity, which was often despite their best efforts to circulate separately. "You two have history?" Priya asked quietly when she and Lindy found themselves alone by the hors d'oeuvres table. "We met yesterday in Paris." "Yesterday?" Priya's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Could have fooled me. The energy between you feels established. Lindy reached for a bruschetta, needing something to do with her hands. We're competitors. It's just tension. That's not competition tension, darling. That's something else entirely. Priya smiled knowingly. He hasn't stopped watching you since you arrived, and you keep finding him in every crowd. If I didn't know better, I'd say Alessandro invited you both for entertainment value. Before Lindy could respond, Alessandro clapped his hands for attention. My friends, tomorrow we begin our official presentations, but tonight let us simply enjoy. Dinner will be served shortly, but first, a tradition. We'll take a walk through the vineyards at sunset. The light is perfetto, and it will help you understand what Casa Bellini represents. Heritage, beauty, timelessness. The group moved as one toward the vineyard paths, spreading out naturally into pairs and small clusters. Lindy deliberately positioned herself near the Moretti brothers, asking intelligent questions about their design philosophy, trying to learn and strategize simultaneously, but she felt Jae-won behind her like a physical presence. When the path narrowed and people were forced into single file, he somehow ended up directly at her back, close enough that she felt his breath on her neck when he leaned forward to murmur, "You're avoiding me. I'm networking. You're running." His hand touched her lower back, steadying her over uneven ground, but the touch lingered longer than necessary. Afraid of what might happen if we're alone? Nothing's going to happen. We'll see. They emerged into a clearing where Alessandro had arranged a wine tasting, small tables set up with bottles and glasses. Cheese and fruit, the sunset painting everything gold and rose. It was impossibly romantic, clearly designed to seduce potential partners into loving not just the brand, but the lifestyle. Please pair up, Alessandro encouraged. Share a tasting, get to know each other. Competition doesn't mean we can't be civilized. Before Lindy could move toward Priya, Jae-won's hand closed around her elbow. You're with me. I don't think I do. He guided her to a secluded table at the edge of the clearing, close enough to be part of the group, but far enough for privacy. Sit. She shouldn't. Should establish that he couldn't just command her. But something in his eyes, not quite a plea, not quite a demand, made her sink into the chair. He poured them both wine with practiced grace, then selected a cluster of deep purple grapes from the fruit arrangement. Open. What? Your mouth. His eyes held challenge and heat. Open. Her lips parted before her brain could override the impulse. He placed a grape on her tongue, his fingers brushing her lower lip with devastating deliberacy. The grape was sweet and perfect, but she barely tasted it through the electricity of his touch. Good? He asked, voice rough. She couldn't speak, could only nod. He selected another grape, but this time he ate it himself, his eyes never leaving hers. The intimacy of watching him, his lips closing around the fruit, his throat working as he swallowed, felt more erotic than it had any right to. Your turn, he said, pushing the fruit plate toward her. With trembling fingers, she selected a strawberry and lifted it to his mouth. He bit into it slowly, deliberately, juice staining his lips red. His tongue darted out to catch a drop, and heat pooled low in her belly at the unconscious sensuality of the gesture. You have something, he murmured, thumb rising to brush the corner of her mouth. Right here. She didn't. She knew she didn't, but she let him touch her anyway, let his thumb trace the seam of her lips with aching slowness. Let herself imagine what it would feel like if he closed the distance and finally kissed her properly. Jae-won, she whispered. Warning or plea? She couldn't tell. I know. But he didn't pull away. I know we shouldn't. I know this is complicated and dangerous and probably the worst idea either of us has ever had. But Lindiwe, I can't. Mr. Yoon, Ms. Khumalo. Alessandro's voice shattered the moment. He approached their table with a broad smile. How are you enjoying the wine? It's excellent, Lindy managed, grateful for and resentful of the interruption in equal measure. Casa Bellini has been making this varietal for 6 generations. Alessandro settled into a chair, clearly intending to join them. It represents everything we are: tradition, quality, patience. These things cannot be rushed. His eyes moved between them with knowing amusement. Rather like relationships, no? The best ones develop slowly, with care. Was he talking about business or something else? Lindy couldn't tell. They spent the next 20 minutes in conversation about winemaking, market strategies, and the philosophy of luxury branding. Alessandro was brilliant and charming, clearly assessing them even in casual discussion. But underneath the business talk, Lindy felt Jae-won's leg press against hers under the table. Felt his hand rest casually on the back of her chair, fingers occasionally grazing her shoulder blade. Felt the constant, maddening awareness of him beside her. Dinner was served back at the villa, a lavish affair of multiple courses, flowing wine and increasingly relaxed conversation as the evening wore on. Lindy found herself seated between Enzo Moretti and Priya, with Jae-won directly across the table. Their eyes met constantly, despite their best efforts to focus elsewhere. When she laughed at something Enzo said, leaning in to hear him better, she saw Jae-won's jaw clench. When he smiled at something Svetlana whispered, his attention obviously elsewhere, Lindy felt something ugly and possessive coil in her chest. This was ridiculous. She had no claim on him. He was competition, nothing more. Except her racing heart and flushed skin suggested otherwise. After dinner, as guests drifted toward their rooms, Alessandro announced a surprise. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., we swim. The pool at dawn is magnificent, and it's a Bellini family tradition to start important days this way. Not mandatory, but highly encouraged. His smile was mischievous. Sleep well, my friends. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Lindy escaped to her room, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day and the constant proximity to Jae-won. She changed into silk pajamas, washed her face, and climbed into the enormous bed. But sleep wouldn't come. She could hear him through the wall, moving around his room, water running, the creak of his bed as he lay down. Every sound was torture, making her hyper-aware that he was just feet away, probably sleepless too, probably thinking about her the way she couldn't stop thinking about him. At 5:45 a.m., she gave up on sleep entirely. If she was going to be awake, she might as well swim. The pool would be empty this early. She could have some peace before facing another day of Jae-won's presence. She changed into her swimsuit, a sleek black one-piece that hugged her curves, threw a silk robe over it, and slipped quietly from her room. The villa was silent, staff not yet stirring, guests still asleep. The pool area was empty and perfect, water shimmering in the pre-dawn light. Lindy dropped her robe on a lounger and dove in smoothly. The water was cool and perfect, washing away the tension of sleeplessness. She swam laps with methodical precision, losing herself in the rhythm of movement and breath. When she finally stopped, treading water in the deep end, a voice startled her. Couldn't sleep. She spun in the water to find Jae-won standing at the pool's edge, shirtless, his tattoos on full display in the growing light. Water droplets beaded on his skin from his own swim, and his wet hair was slicked back, revealing the sharp beauty of his face. He looked like sin and salvation, and she couldn't breathe. I thought I was alone. She managed. So did I. He dove in smoothly, surfacing near her with powerful strokes, until I heard someone swimming and couldn't resist investigating. They circled each other in the water, maintaining distance but unable to look away. The pool suddenly felt intimate, the space between them charged with everything unspoken. This is becoming a habit, Lindy said, trying for lightness. Us alone together. I don't mind. He moved closer, water rippling around them. Do you? I should. But she didn't back away. We're supposed to be enemies. Are we? He was close enough now that she could see water droplets on his lashes, could count the freckles across his shoulders. Because it doesn't feel like hate, Lindiwe. Feels like something else entirely. It's just attraction, she said weakly. Physical chemistry. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? His hand found hers under the water, fingers intertwining. The touch was hidden, secret, theirs, alone. Then why does it feel like everything? She couldn't answer. Couldn't find words when he was this close, when his thumb was drawing circles on her palm underwater, when dawn was breaking pink and gold around them and everything felt suspended in possibility. I can't stop thinking about you, he admitted quietly. Haven't been able to since Paris. You're in my head constantly, and I hate it because wanting you feels like weakness, but I can't. She slipped. 1 second she was treading water, the next her foot caught on something, the pool drain, a shadow, nothing, and she went under. It was brief, barely a second, but Jae-won reacted instantly, his arms wrapped around her waist, hauling her up, pulling her against his chest with protective strength. They surfaced together, gasping, and suddenly they were pressed together from chest to thigh, his arms locked around her, her hands braced on his shoulders. Their faces were inches apart, both breathing hard. And the world narrowed to just this moment. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice rough. "I'm fine, just slipped." But she didn't pull away, couldn't make herself leave the safety and danger of his arms. "Lindiwe," he breathed, and her name sounded like a prayer. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating tenderness. "Tell me to stop. Tell me this is wrong and we need to stay away from each other. Tell me anything that will make me let you go." "I can't," she whispered, "because it would be a lie." Something broke in his expression, relief and hunger, and something deeper. He leaned forward, and she knew with crystal certainty that this time nothing would interrupt them. This time he was going to kiss her, and she was going to let him, and everything would change. His lips were a breath from hers when a door slammed in the villa. They jerked apart, suddenly aware of their surroundings, of the other guests who might appear any second. Jae-won released her, reluctantly, and she immediately felt the loss like physical pain. "We should," she started. "I know." He dragged a hand through his wet hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "But Lindiwe, this isn't over. You know that, right? Whatever this is between us, it's not going away just because we keep stopping." "I know." She swam toward the pool's edge, needing distance before she did something reckless. "But we can't. We're competing for the same thing. Maybe that's not the only option." He followed her, pulling himself out of the water with effortless grace. He grabbed a towel, then handed her one. "Maybe there's a way we both get what we want." "There isn't. Alessandro is choosing one partner, not two." "Then maybe we change the game." His eyes held hers with intensity that stole her breath. "Think about it, Lindiwe. What if instead of destroying each other, we combined forces? Sahara Luxe and Hanul Atelier together. African and Asian luxury. United, we'd be unstoppable." The suggestion hit her like a punch. "You're serious?" "Completely." He stepped closer, voice dropping to something intimate and urgent. "I've been thinking about this since Paris. Separately, we're strong. Together, we'd be revolutionary. And maybe..." He hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his face. "Maybe it would mean I don't have to choose between the deal and you." Her heart stuttered. "Jae-won." "Mr. Yoon, Miss Khumalo, good morning." "Alas, maybe that's not the only option." He followed her, pulling himself out of the water with effortless grace. He grabbed a towel, then handed her one. "Maybe there's a way we both get what we want." "There isn't. Alessandro is choosing one partner, not two." "Then maybe we change the game." His eyes held hers with intensity that stole her breath. Think about it, Lindiwe. What if instead of destroying each other, we combined forces? Sahara Luxe and Eclipse Atelier, together. African and Asian luxury united. We'd be unstoppable. The suggestion hit her like a punch. You're serious? Completely. He stepped closer, voice dropping to something intimate and urgent. I've been thinking about this since Paris. Separately, we're strong. Together, we'd be revolutionary, and maybe... He hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his face. Maybe it would mean I don't have to choose between the deal and you. Her heart stuttered. Jae-won! Andrew's cheerful voice shattered the moment. He emerged from the villa in swimming trunks and a robe, followed by several other early rising guests. I see you're both embracing the tradition. Excellent, excellent. The moment was gone. Jae-won stepped back, mask sliding into place, and Lindy wrapped herself in a towel-like armor. But his words echoed in her mind as she escaped to her room to change. A partnership, combining their companies. It was brilliant and terrifying and possibly the answer to everything. Or possibly the biggest mistake she could make. She'd come here to win Casa Bellini for Sahara Luxe alone. But what if Jae-won was right? What if together they could create something neither could achieve separately? The question haunted her through breakfast, through Alessandro's announcement that presentations would begin after lunch, through the morning spent finalizing her pitch. She'd prepared everything perfectly. The market analysis, the cultural synergy, the financial projections. Sahara Luxe was the right choice for Casa Bellini. But doubt crept in, whispering seductive possibilities about partnerships and combined empires and what it might mean to have Jae-won as an ally instead of an enemy. She was still wrestling with it when she walked into the villa's grand study for her presentation at 2 p.m. Alessandro and his 2 adult sons sat behind an ornate desk, notebooks and tablets ready. Professional, formal, decisive. Lindy launched into her pitch with confident precision, walking them through Sahara Luxe's growth trajectory, demonstrating the untapped African luxury market, explaining the cultural resonance between Casa Bellini's Italian heritage and African aesthetic traditions. She was brilliant, and she knew it, hitting every point perfectly. But halfway through her financial projections, Alessandro's assistant Francesca entered and whispered something in his ear. His expression shifted. Confusion, then anger. Ms. Khumalo, Alessandro interrupted. I apologize, but I must ask you something directly. Did you provide confidential information about Casa Bellini's financial situation to any third parties? Her blood ran cold. Absolutely not. Why would you? Because we've just received an anonymous tip that sensitive financial documents were accessed from your hotel's IP address in Paris 2 nights ago. Alessandro's voice was hard now, disappointed. Documents that should have been secure. Documents that contained information you're now using in your presentation. That's impossible. Panic clawed at her throat. I would never. I haven't accessed anything I shouldn't have. My research was all from public records and industry analysis. Then how do you explain this? Alessandro's son, Giovanni, turned his tablet to show her login credentials. Her name, her email, accessing restricted Casa Bellini files. Someone had framed her. Someone had deliberately sabotaged her pitch, and she had a horrible suspicion about who. Her eyes found Jae-won standing in the doorway, clearly waiting for his turn to present. Their gazes locked, and she saw something flicker in his expression. Surprise, concern, and underneath it, a calculation that made her stomach drop. He'd played her. The attraction, the vulnerability, the talk of partnership, all of it was strategy to get close to her, to set her up, for this exact moment. I need to investigate this, Lindy said, voice shaking with barely controlled fury, because I didn't do this, and someone is trying to destroy my credibility. We'll pause presentations until this is resolved, Alessandro said heavily. I cannot partner with someone whose ethics are questionable, Miss Khumalo. I'm very disappointed. She walked out of that study with her head high and her heart shattered, rage and betrayal warring for dominance. She'd let herself be vulnerable with Jae-won, had started to trust him, had even considered his partnership proposal, and he'd destroyed her. She made it to her room before the tears came, hot, furious tears that she hated herself for shedding. She wouldn't cry over a man who'd manipulated her, wouldn't give him that power. A knock at her door interrupted her breakdown. "Go away," she called out. "Lindiwe, it's me. Please let me explain." Jae-won's voice on the other side of the door ignited something volcanic inside her. She yanked it open, not caring that her face was tear-stained, needing him to see exactly what he'd done. "Explain what?" she spat. "How you played me, how you pretended to want me while setting me up for humiliation. How everything you said was lies designed to distract me while you sabotaged my presentation." "I didn't do this." He stepped forward and she saw genuine distress in his eyes. "Lindiwe, I swear to you, I had nothing to do with those documents being accessed. I would never—" "Why should I believe you?" Her voice cracked. "You admitted in Paris that you played dirty when necessary, that you've skirted ethical lines. Why wouldn't you do this?" "Because I meant what I said." His control shattered, raw emotion flooding his face. "Everything I said to you, about wanting you, about seeing you, about maybe there being a way for both of us to win, I meant all of it. I wouldn't sabotage you like this because despite everything, despite the competition, He stopped, swallowing hard. "I care about you. And I'm terrified because caring about you feels like the most dangerous thing I've ever done." She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him, but trust had always been her weakness, the thing that had destroyed her father and threatened to destroy her too. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't trust you. Even if you didn't do this, someone did, and I can't afford to let anyone close enough to hurt me again." Pain lanced across his face. "So that's it? You're just going to assume I'm guilty and shut me out?" "What choice do I have?" Tears spilled down her cheeks despite her best efforts. "We were always on opposite sides, Jae-won. I just forgot for a minute." "Then let me help you prove your innocence." He reached for her, and she stepped back, maintaining distance. "Let me help you find out who really did this. Because Lindiwe, if it wasn't me, that means someone else is playing both of us. Someone who wants us at each other's throats." The possibility hung between them, electric and terrifying. What if he was telling the truth? What if someone was manipulating them both? Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. An unknown number with a text message. "Check your email. You're welcome." A friend. With trembling hands, she opened her inbox. The most recent message contained a file. Security footage from the hotel in Paris showing someone accessing her laptop while she was at the gala. Someone in a staff uniform, face obscured, but the build was wrong for Jae-won. Too slight, too short. Another text arrived. "He didn't betray you, but someone did. Trust no one. Work together or lose everything." She showed Jae-won the messages, watching his expression shift from confusion to understanding to grim determination. "Someone's playing us," he said quietly. "Someone who wants both of us out of the running for Casa Bellini. But who?" Her mind raced through possibilities. One of the other competitors? Someone inside Casa Bellini? An enemy we don't even know about? "I don't know, but we need to find out." He met her eyes with desperate intensity. "And we need to do it together, because whoever this is, they're good enough to frame you convincingly and make us turn on each other. Divided, we're vulnerable. Together we might stand a chance." She hated how much she wanted to believe him, hated how even now, terrified and betrayed and furious, part of her still ached to trust him. But if this is another manipulation, it's not. He took her hands, his touch gentle despite the urgency in his voice. I swear on everything I've built, on my family's legacy, on whatever future we might have together, I didn't do this, and I won't let whoever did destroy you, or us. The word hung between them, fragile and impossible, and suddenly very, very real. Us, as if they'd already stopped being separate, entities competing for the same prize and become something unified, something worth fighting for. Outside, thunder rumbled, a storm rolling in across the Tuscan hills. Inside, Lindy felt her own storm building, the terrible knowledge that she was about to make a choice that would either save her or destroy everything. Trust Jae-won and risk being wrong, or shut him out and face this alone. Neither option felt safe, but only one felt like falling. "Okay," she whispered. "We work together. But if you're lying to me, Jae-won, if this is all just strategy, it's not." He pulled her close, and this time she let herself take comfort in his arms, even as her rational mind screamed warnings. "I promise you, Lindiwe, whatever happens, whatever we find, I'm on your side now. We figure this out together, and then we win, not just Casa Bellini, everything." The storm broke outside, rain lashing against windows, and inside, wrapped in his arms with danger lurking and trust barely forming and the future utterly uncertain, Lindy finally admitted the truth. She was falling for her enemy, and it was either the best or worst thing she'd ever done. They had until Monday to find out which. The morning after the storm dawned clear and merciless, sunlight streaming through Lindy's windows like an interrogation light. She'd spent half the night wrapped in Jae-won's arms on her bed, fully clothed, painfully chaste, just holding each other while they strategized about who might be sabotaging them. The other half she'd spent watching him sleep in the chair by her window, his face unguarded and beautiful in the darkness, wondering how she'd gotten here, falling for a man who might be her salvation or her destruction. The jury was still out. A soft knock at her door made her pulse jump. She opened it to find Jae-won freshly showered, changed, his hair still damp and his eyes shadowed with the same sleeplessness that plagued her. "Morning," he said quietly. "Alessandro wants to see us. Both of us. Together." Her stomach dropped. Did he say why? No. But Francesca looked strange, like she knew something we didn't. He reached for her hand, and after only a moment's hesitation, she let him take it. "Whatever happens, we face it together. Remember? Together." The words still felt foreign and terrifying and impossibly right. They found Alessandro in his private study, sunlight streaming through tall windows overlooking the vineyards. He looked older this morning, tired, like the weight of his family's legacy sat heavily on his shoulders. "Sit, please." He gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "I owe you both an apology, Ms. Khumalo especially. After investigating the security breach, we've confirmed that you are not responsible. Someone accessed those documents using sophisticated methods to make it appear as though you were the culprit." Relief flooded through Lindy so powerfully her knees went weak. "Thank you for believing me. I should have trusted my instincts about your character from the beginning." Alessandro's expression turned thoughtful. "But this incident has made me reconsider my approach to choosing a partner for Casa Bellini. I've been thinking about this all night, and I've come to a decision that may surprise you both." Jae-won's hand found Lindy's under the desk, squeezing gently. "Casa Bellini needs more than a single partner," Alessandro continued. "We need a vision that bridges not one, but multiple markets: African luxury, Asian innovation, European heritage. Separately, Sahara Luxe and Hanoi Atelier each offer compelling partnerships, but together," his eyes gleamed, "together you could create something unprecedented, a global luxury empire that transcends borders and cultures." Lindy's heart hammered. "You're suggesting we partner with each other?" I'm suggesting that whoever wins Casa Bellini's favor must partner with another major luxury house to create the global unity vision I've always dreamed of. Alessandro leaned forward. The question is, are you two capable of working together, of merging your companies, your visions, your very different approaches into something unified? Because if you can, Casa Bellini wants to be part of that future. The offer hung between them, massive and terrifying, and exactly what Jae-won had suggested by the pool. But now, it wasn't just possibility, it was requirement. Jae-won turned to her, his voice low and urgent. Partner with me, Lindiwe. Not because Alessandro's requiring it, but because it's right. Because together, we're stronger than we ever could be apart. Because... He stopped, swallowing hard. Because I don't want to compete with you anymore. I want to build something with you. Every logical cell in her brain screamed caution. She'd built Sahara Lux alone, fought for every inch of success without relying on anyone. Merging with her Noel meant surrendering control, trusting Jae-won with everything she'd built, betting her entire future on a man she'd known for days. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw the same fear and hope and desperate longing that twisted inside her own chest. I need time, she said finally. This is too important to decide impulsively. Of course, Alessandro smiled. Take the weekend to consider, but know this. Casa Bellini will partner with whoever can demonstrate not just business acumen, but the ability to collaborate across cultures and visions. Show me you can work together, and the deal is yours. Both of yours. They left the study in silence, the magnitude of the decision pressing down on them. Outside, the other competitors were packing to leave. Svetlana looking furious, Priya philosophical, the Moretti brothers already negotiating their next opportunity. Alessandro had clearly made his choice. It was Sahara Lux and Hanel, together or not at all. We should talk, Jae-won said as they reached their rooms. Really talk, about what partnership would mean, how we'd structure it, what we'd each bring to the table. Not here. Lindy needed distance from the romantic intensity of Tuscany, needed to think clearly. In Boston, on neutral ground where we can be rational about this. Rational. His smile was slight. Sad. Is that what we're calling it? They flew back to Boston the next morning, seated together in first class by some cosmic joke or Alessandro's knowing assistant. The plane was half empty, giving them privacy that felt both welcome and dangerous. Jae-won worked on his laptop for the first hour, and Lindy tried to focus on reports and emails. But she was hyper-aware of him beside her, the warmth of his body, the subtle cologne that made her want to lean closer, the occasional brush of his arm against hers when he shifted. I can't stop thinking about you. His voice broke the silence suddenly, raw and honest. He'd closed his laptop, turned to face her fully. I know we're supposed to be discussing business strategy and partnership structures. But all I can think about is how you felt in my arms last night, how right it was, how much I wanted to kiss you properly instead of just holding you. Her breath caught. Jae-won, you feel it too. I know you do. His hand found hers on the armrest between them, fingers intertwining. This thing between us, it's not just physical attraction or strategic alliance. It's something real, something that scares me because I've never felt it before. That makes two of us, she admitted quietly. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding exactly this. Avoiding vulnerability, avoiding dependence, avoiding anything that might make me weak. Does this make you feel weak? His thumb traced circles on her palm, the touch intimate despite the public setting. No. The truth surprised her. It makes me feel terrified, but not weak. Turbulence hit suddenly, the plane dropping sickeningly before stabilizing. Lindy gasped, instinctively grabbing for something solid, and Jae-won's arm came around her shoulders immediately, pulling her against his chest with protective strength. I've got you, he murmured against her hair. You're safe. The turbulence passed quickly, but neither of them moved. Lindy stayed curled against his side, his arms secure around her, their faces inches apart. She could count his eyelashes from this distance, could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could feel his heartbeat racing as fast as hers. "If I kiss you right now," he whispered, "everything changes. You know that, right?" "I know." But she didn't pull away. "We crossed this line. There's no going back to being just potential business partners. No pretending this is purely strategic." "I know," she repeated, her lips so close to his she could taste his breath. He kissed her. Finally, after days of almost moments and interrupted opportunities and unbearable tension, Yoon Jae-won kissed Lindiwe Khumalo, 30,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, and the world tilted on its axis. His lips were gentle at first, questioning, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, when instead she melted into him with a soft sound of surrender, the kiss deepened into something desperate and consuming. His hand cupped her face like she was precious, her fingers tangled in his hair like she'd been wanting to do since Paris, and everything else fell away except this. The taste of him, the feel of him, the rightness of finally giving in to what had been inevitable from the moment their eyes first met. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jae-won pressed his forehead to hers. "Tell me I'm not alone in this. Tell me you feel what I feel." "You're not alone," she whispered. "God help me, you're not alone." They spent the rest of the flight talking, really talking, about everything except business, about his childhood in Seoul, her upbringing in Johannesburg, about the pressures of family legacy and the fear of failure, about loneliness at the top and the cost of success, about dreams they'd never told anyone and fears they'd never admitted. By the time they landed in Boston, something had shifted between them. They weren't just potential business partners or reluctant allies anymore. They were something more fragile and more powerful. Two people who'd accidentally found each other in the midst of competition and couldn't seem to let go. "Come to my office tomorrow," Jae-won said as they collected their luggage. "We'll go through the partnership proposal properly. Map out how Sahara Lux and Hanol could merge without either of us losing what makes our brands unique." "Your office?" Lindy raised an eyebrow. "Why not neutral ground?" His smile was slow and devastating. "Because I want you in my space. Want to see you surrounded by what I've built. He stopped himself. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m. We'll order dinner, go through the details. Keep it professional." "Professional," she repeated, not believing it for a second. They both knew nothing about tomorrow night was going to stay professional. Lindy spent the next day trying to focus on work and failing spectacularly. Her team at Sahara Lux's Boston headquarters peppered her with questions about Tuscany, about Casa Bellini, about the mysterious Korean CEO she'd been photographed with at the gala. She deflected with practiced ease, but inside, her mind spun with possibilities and terror. Merging with Hanol Atelier meant restructuring everything, meant trusting Jae-won with her company, her employees, her legacy, meant admitting she couldn't do this alone anymore, meant choosing him, choosing them, choosing a future that was utterly uncertain. By the time 8 p.m. rolled around, she was a bundle of nerves and anticipation. She changed 3 times before settling on sleek black pants and a silk blouse that was professional but feminine. Business with an edge. Just like their entire relationship. Hanol Atelier's Boston office occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and modern minimalism. The receptionist had clearly been told to expect her, waving her through to the executive suite with a knowing smile that made Lindy's cheeks flush. Jae-won's corner office was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, contemporary Korean art on the walls, furniture that blended traditional and modern with elegant precision. and Jae-won himself, standing by those windows in dark slacks and a white shirt, with sleeves rolled up to reveal his tattoos, backlit by the city lights, like something from a dream. "You came," he said, as if there had been any doubt. "I said I would." She set her bag down, trying to ignore how intimate this felt. Just the two of them, alone, the city spread out below like their potential future. "Should we start with the financial projections?" "In a minute." He moved toward her with that predatory grace that still made her pulse race. "First, I need to show you something." He led her to his desk where architectural drawings and fabric samples were spread out. "This is what I was working on before Tuscany, a new Hanel flagship store in Cape Town. I wanted to break into the African market, but I didn't know how to do it authentically. Didn't know how to honor the culture instead of appropriating it." He looked at her with devastating honesty. "And then I met you, and I realized I don't have to do it alone. We could do it together. Sahara Lux's cultural authenticity combined with Hanel's design innovation. It could be revolutionary." Her throat tightened. "You were planning this before Alessandro suggested it." "I've been planning this since our dance in Paris." His hand found hers, warm and sure. "Maybe even before that. Maybe from the moment I saw you across that ballroom and knew with absolute certainty that you were going to change my life." "Jae-won," her artisanal voice cracked. "Let me finish." He pulled her closer, his free hand coming up to cup her face. "I know this is fast. I know we barely know each other. I know there are 1,000 reasons this could fail, but Lindiwe, I also know that I've never felt this certain about anything. Not Hanel's expansion, not any business deal, nothing. You're the first thing that's ever felt more important than my company, and that terrifies me and thrills me in equal measure." She should step back, should insist they focus on business, should protect her heart from the inevitable devastation when this imploded. Instead, she kissed him, rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his with all the desperate longing she'd been trying to suppress. His arms came around her immediately, pulling her flush against him, and the kiss turned incendiary. Days of restraint and almost moments exploded into something consuming and inevitable. "Lindiwe," he groaned against her lips. "If we do this, if we cross this line—" "I know." She was already pulling him toward the leather couch against the wall, already making the choice her brain screamed against but her heart demanded. "I know what it means, and I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you, even though it's reckless and dangerous and might destroy everything." "Nothing's going to be destroyed," he promised, laying her back against soft leather, covering her body with his own delicious weight. "I won't let anything hurt you, not business rivals, not saboteurs, not even me. I swear it." His kisses trailed from her mouth to her jaw, to the sensitive spot behind her ear that made her gasp. His hands roamed with reverent possession, learning every curve, every place that made her breath catch. And when she tugged his shirt free and finally ran her hands over the tattoos she'd been fantasizing about, feeling the heat of his skin and the thunder of his heartbeat, she knew with crystalline certainty that this was the point of no return. "Wait." He pulled back, breathing hard, his eyes dark with desire, but his expression serious. "I need you to be sure. Need to know this isn't just physical for you. Because for me," he swallowed hard, "for me, this is everything. You're everything, and if we do this, I'm all in. Not just for tonight, but for whatever future we're building together." Tears pricked her eyes at the raw vulnerability in his voice. "I'm sure, terrified, but sure. This isn't just physical for me either, Jae-won. You've gotten under my skin in ways I didn't know were possible, and yes, that scares me. But not doing this, not taking this risk, that scares me more." His smile was brilliant and relieved. "Then let me prove it to you. Let me show you what you mean to me." What followed was tender and passionate and achingly intimate. Clothes discarded with trembling hands, whispered confessions in the darkness, pleasure given and received with generous reverence. They learned each other's bodies and souls, Simultaneously, every touch a promise, every kiss a vow. When they finally lay tangled together on that couch, hearts racing and skin cooling and the city lights painting them in gold, Lindy felt something shift permanently inside her chest. She'd given him everything, her body, her trust, pieces of her heart she'd thought were permanently locked away. "You're mine," he whispered against her temple, arms tightening around her. "Tell me you're mine." "I'm yours." The words should have felt like surrender. Instead, they felt like freedom. "And you're mine. Prove it every day." "Every day," he promised, "for as long as you'll have me." They stayed like that for hours, talking between kisses, planning their future between caresses, building castles in the air that suddenly felt possible. They'd merge their companies as equal partners, would split leadership responsibilities based on strengths rather than ego, would build something that honored both their legacies while creating something entirely new. It was past midnight when they finally moved to his office couch's neighboring chairs, wrapped in his jacket and her blouse, reviewing actual partnership documents with exhausted contentment. "This clause about decision-making," Lindy said, pointing to a paragraph. "We need to clarify what happens if we disagree on a major strategic direction." "We'll figure it out." Jae-won kissed her shoulder. "We'll always figure it out, because we're better together than apart." "You're very optimistic for someone who's seen how stubborn I can be." "I'm counting on your stubbornness. It's part of what I—" He stopped abruptly, eyes widening. "What you what?" Her heart hammered. "Nothing, never mind." But his expression said everything his mouth wouldn't. She was about to push when her phone buzzed with an email notification, probably her assistant with tomorrow's schedule. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. The sender was unknown. The subject line, "Read. The truth about Yoon Industries." Ice flooded her veins. She opened the email with trembling hands, Jae-won leaning over her shoulder to read. There was no message, just an attachment, a scanned legal document from 15 years ago. A contract between Yoon Industries and Transworld Holdings for the acquisition of Khumalo Import Company, her father's company. Jae-won's family had been the ones who destroyed him. The world tilted sideways. Lindy stood abruptly, nearly stumbling, the phone clutched in her shaking hand like evidence at a crime scene. "Lindiwe." Jae-won reached for her, confusion clear on his face. He hadn't read it carefully enough yet. Didn't understand what he was looking at. "Your family." Her voice came out strangled, barely human. "Your family bought my father's company, Yoon Industries, the Korean conglomerate that destroyed everything he'd built. That was you. Your family did that to mine." She watched understanding dawn on his face. Watched horror replace confusion. Watched him realize the magnitude of what this meant. "I didn't know," he said desperately. "Lindiwe, I swear to God I had no idea. That was before I took over, before I... Let me look at that document." "Don't." She backed away when he tried to approach, suddenly unable to bear his touch. "Don't come near me. I gave you everything, my body, my trust, my company's future. And all this time, your family was the reason my father died broken and ashamed. Your family destroyed mine, and you..." Her voice cracked. "Did you know, when you researched me, when you learned about my father, did you know?" "No." He looked gutted, desperate. "I knew your father lost his company to a Korean conglomerate. I didn't know it was mine. My father handled acquisitions back then. I was in college, barely involved in the business. I swear I didn't know." She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. But the evidence was damning, and trust had always been the thing that destroyed her. "Get out," she whispered. "What?" "Get out of your office. I can't..." She was breaking apart, shattering into pieces, and she couldn't do it in front of him, couldn't let him see her fall apart. "Please, just go." "Lindiwe, please, Let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Her voice rose, cracking with anguish. Your family destroyed mine, that's a fact, and whether you knew or not doesn't change what happened. Doesn't change that my father lost everything because of your family's greed. Doesn't change that I trusted you, let you close, and now I find out you're connected to the worst thing that ever happened to my family. Tears streamed down her face now, hot and humiliating. She saw answering tears in Jae-won's eyes, saw his hands clench helplessly at his sides. I love you, he said desperately. I know it's too soon and too complicated and the worst possible timing, but I love you, Lindiwe. And I won't let this destroy us. We'll figure it out. You love me? She laughed, bitter and broken. You don't even know me. You know the woman you've spent a few days with. You don't know the girl who watched her father waste away after your family destroyed his life's work. You don't know what it cost me to trust you. And now, she couldn't finish. Then let me know her. He moved toward her, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. Let me know all of you. The pain, the anger, the history. Let me make this right somehow. You can't make it right. But she didn't back away when he finally reached her, when his hands gently framed her face, when his thumbs wiped away her tears. Some things can't be fixed, Jae-won. Then let me try anyway. His voice broke. Please, don't shut me out. Don't let whoever sent that email destroy what we're building. The words penetrated her anguish. What? Think about it. His eyes sharpened even through the tears. Someone sent you that document. Someone who knew it would devastate you, knew it would drive us apart. Someone who's been sabotaging us from the beginning, the security breach in Paris, the framed evidence in Tuscany, and now this. Someone wants us to fail. He was right. The realization cut through her emotional chaos. Someone had sent this specific document at this specific moment, right when she and Jae-won were most vulnerable, most entwined, most likely to be destroyed by this revelation. Who? She whispered. I don't know, but we're going to find out. His hands slid down to grip her shoulders. Together, because whatever my family did to yours 15 years ago, I'm not that person. I'm not my father, and I won't let his mistakes destroy the best thing that's ever happened to me. Her phone buzzed again. Another email from the same unknown sender. This one contained a single line. Ask him about the factory workers in Busan. Ask him who really paid the price for Hanul's expansion. Then, decide if you still want to build a future with him. Jae-won read it over her shoulder and she felt him go rigid. What is that about? She asked quietly. He released her, stepping back, and the devastation on his face told her everything before he spoke. 5 years ago, when I took over Hanul, the company was failing. My father had made bad decisions, taken on too much debt. We were bleeding money from an outdated factory in Busan. He swallowed hard. I closed it, laid off 300 workers with minimal severance because we couldn't afford more. It was the right business decision. It saved the company. But those people, his voice cracked. Some of them never recovered. There were suicides, families destroyed, and I told myself it was necessary, that I had no choice. Lindy stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the devastatingly handsome CEO or the vulnerable man who'd held her tenderly, but a person who'd made terrible choices in the name of survival. Just like she had. Just like everyone did when climbing to the top. We all have blood on our hands, she heard herself say, echoing his words from Paris. That's what you told me. Remember? I remember. He looked at her with desperate hope. Does that mean, can you forgive this? Forgive me? Could she? Could she reconcile the man who'd made her feel cherished and seen with the businessman who'd closed a factory and ruined lives? Could she accept that he was both flawed and human and trying to do better, Could she accept the same about herself? Before she could answer, her phone rang. Her CFO's name flashed on the screen. "Lindy, we have a problem." Rashida's voice was tight with stress. "Someone leaked confidential information about the potential Casa Bellini partnership to our competitors. Stock prices are fluctuating wildly. The board is calling an emergency meeting, and there are rumors." She hesitated. "Rumors that you're personally involved with Yoon Jae-won, that this whole partnership is some kind of romantic entanglement rather than sound business strategy." The words hit like physical blows. "Who's spreading these rumors?" "I don't know, but Lindy, this is bad, really bad. If we don't get ahead of this, Sahara Lux's reputation could be destroyed, and the Casa Bellini deal, I'll handle it." She ended the call, mind racing. Jae-won's phone was ringing too. He answered, his expression darkening as he listened. "When? How much? Okay. Yes, I'll deal with it." He looked at her bleakly. "Someone shorted Hanoul's stock this morning. Major position. They're betting on our failure, and they're spreading rumors that the merger is a scheme to defraud investors, that we're using Casa Bellini as a smokescreen for insider trading." They stared at each other, the magnitude of the attack becoming clear. This wasn't just about sabotaging their relationship or the Casa Bellini deal. Someone was trying to destroy both their companies entirely. "We need to find out who's doing this," Lindy said, her voice hardening with determination, "and we need to do it fast." "Agreed." Jae-won moved to his desk, already pulling up files on his computer. "I'm going to call my head of security, have him trace those emails. You should—" A package thudded against his office door, delivered by overnight courier. They exchanged wary glances before Jae-won retrieved it. No return address, just their names typed on the label. Inside was a flash drive and a note in the same style as the emails. "Everything you need to know about who's destroying you. Trust it or ignore it, but decide fast. You're running out of time." Jae-won plugged the drive into his computer. Files populated the screen, financial records, security footage, email threads. Evidence of a conspiracy that went deeper than either of them had imagined. And at the center of it all, a name neither of them expected. Lindy's hands shook as she read the evidence. "No, that's not possible." "It is." Jae-won's voice was grim. "And it means everything we thought we knew is wrong. The person sabotaging them wasn't a competitor or a stranger. It was someone close to both of them. Someone who'd had access to their companies, their plans, their vulnerabilities from the very beginning. Someone who wanted them to fail, not just professionally, but personally. Someone who knew exactly how to destroy them because they'd been trusted with everything." Outside, dawn was breaking over Boston, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. But inside Jae-won's office, surrounded by evidence of betrayal and conspiracy, Lindy felt only darkness closing in. They had 48 hours until the Casa Bellini deal was finalized or fell apart. 48 hours to expose whoever was destroying them. 48 hours to decide if what they'd built together was strong enough to survive the truth about their families, their pasts, and the terrible choices they'd both made. 48 hours to choose between love and survival, or find a way to have both. 24 hours after discovering the identity of their saboteur, Lindy stood outside Eclipse Atelier's offices at 3 in the morning, exhausted and furious and unable to stay away any longer. The evidence on that flash drive had revealed a conspiracy that went deeper than either of them imagined. Her own VP of Operations, Thabo Ndlovu, working in tandem with Jae-won's board member, Vivian Choi, to systematically destroy both companies from within. Thabo, who she'd trusted for 3 years, who'd been there since Sahara Lux's early days, who she'd confided in about her father's death and her fears about the Casa Bellini deal. He'd sold her out. Sold them both out to a rival conglomerate that wanted to acquire both Sahara Lux and Hanoul. at fire sale prices after driving them into the ground. The betrayal burned worse than anything Jae-won's family had done 15 years ago. She rang the after-hours buzzer, knowing he'd be here, knowing he was as sleepless and devastated as she was. The door clicked open almost immediately. Jae-won stood in the lobby, looking as wrecked as she felt, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, eyes shadowed with exhaustion and grief. They stared at each other across the marble floor, and everything they'd left unsaid in the chaos of the past day hung between them like smoke. "I'm still furious with you," she said quietly. "About your family, about what they did to mine, about the factory workers in Busan, about all of it." "I know." He didn't move closer, giving her space even though every line of his body screamed to reach for her. "But I love you, Lindiwe. I'm in love with you, and I know the timing is terrible, and we're in the middle of a crisis, and you have every right to hate me for my family's sins. But I needed you to know. Before we face whatever comes next, I needed you to know that you're not alone in this. That I love you, that I choose you over everything, over my company, over my family's approval, over my own fear. I choose you." Her breath caught. She'd suspected, had felt it in every touch, every look, every desperate promise. But hearing him say it, raw and honest and terrified, shattered something inside her chest. "We have work to do," she managed, voice thick. "Thabo and Vivian, we need to expose them before they do more damage." "I know." But he was moving toward her now, slowly, giving her every chance to retreat. When she didn't, his hands came up to frame her face with aching gentleness. "But first, I need to know, is there any chance for us, after everything? Because I can't do this, can't face them, can't save our companies without knowing if you and I, if we still have a future." She closed her eyes, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. "I don't know. I want there to be. God, I want it so much it terrifies me. But I'm scared, Jae-won. Scared to trust you. Scared that your family's legacy and mine are too tangled in pain to ever build something clean. Scared that I'm making the same mistake my father did, letting someone close enough to destroy me. I'm scared too." His forehead touched hers, and the intimacy of it, the simple sweetness, nearly undid her. "I'm scared to lose you, scared that I'll fail you the way I failed those workers in Busan, scared that I'm not good enough for you, that I'll never be able to wash away the blood on my hands. But I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear win, of losing you without fighting for us with everything I have." "Then we fight," she whispered. "Together. We expose Thabo and Vivian. We save our companies. We face whatever comes. And after," her voice cracked, "after, we figure out if we can build something from all this wreckage." He kissed her then, desperate and tender, tasting like tears and coffee and hope. It wasn't the passionate fire of their first kiss or the consuming hunger of their night together. It was something raw, a lifeline thrown between two people drowning, a promise that they'd face the storm together or not at all. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, his hands still cradling her face like she was precious, she saw her own determination reflected in his eyes. "Let's destroy them," she said. They spent the next 6 hours building their case with ruthless precision. The flash drive contained email threads between Thabo and Vivian dating back months, detailing their conspiracy with frightening clarity. They'd orchestrated the security breach in Paris. They'd framed Lindy in Tuscany. They'd leaked the information about Jae-won's family and the Busan factory. They'd shorted both companies' stocks and spread rumors designed to tank their reputations. All of it carefully calculated to drive Sahara Lux and Hanol into financial crisis, so their backers, Stratton Global, a predatory investment firm, could acquire both, at a fraction of their value. "I trusted him," Lindy said, staring at an email where Thabo had discussed her father's death with cold calculation, using her grief as leverage. "I told him things I've never told anyone, and he—" Her voice broke. Jae-won pulled her into his arms without a word, just holding her while she shattered against his chest. No platitudes, no promises that it would be okay. Just his solid presence and his hand stroking her back and his quiet strength keeping her anchored. When she finally pulled herself together, wiping her eyes with shaking hands, she found him watching her with such tender devastation, it stole her breath. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't fall apart when we have so much to do. Don't." His thumb caught a stray tear. "Don't apologize for being human, for hurting. That's not weakness, Lindiwe. That's survival, and watching you break and then pull yourself back together." He swallowed hard. "That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." The raw honesty healed something inside her, made her believe, maybe for the first time, that being vulnerable with him wasn't the same as being destroyed by him. "We need to call our boards," Jae-won said, returning to strategy even as his hand found hers and held on. "Expose Thabo and Vivian before they can cover their tracks or do more damage. They'll deny everything. Not if we confront them directly. Together. Record it. Get them to incriminate themselves." His eyes hardened. "I want to watch them squirm when they realize they failed." They arranged an emergency meeting at a neutral location, a private conference room Jae-won rented under a false name. Summoned both boards with vague claims of urgent developments regarding the Casa Bellini partnership. Thabo and Vivian came separately, neither knowing the other would be there, neither suspecting they'd been discovered. The moment Thabo walked in and saw Vivian, saw Lindy and Jae-won standing together with grim determination, his expression shifted from confusion to calculation to barely concealed panic. "What is this?" Vivian demanded, her usual polish cracking. "Why are we here together?" "Because you're working together," Lindy said calmly, though fury burned beneath her controlled exterior. "Have been for months, sabotaging both our companies so Stratton Global could acquire us cheaply." "That's absurd," Thabo said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Lindy, whatever you think, I think you betrayed me." Her voice hardened. "I think you used my trust, my grief over my father, my vulnerabilities against me. I think you're a traitor and a coward, and I want you to admit it." "You have no proof." Jae-won pressed play on his laptop. Emails filled the screen, damning, explicit, irrefutable. Thabo and Vivian's conspiracy laid bare for everyone to see. The silence that followed was deafening. "Why?" Lindy asked quietly, needing to understand even as rage threatened to choke her. "Why do this to me? To us? We trusted you." Thabo's mask cracked. "Trust?" He laughed bitterly. "You talk about trust while running Sahara Lux like your personal kingdom. Never listening to advice, never sharing real power. I've worked for you for 3 years, Lindy, and you've never once considered me an equal partner. Just an employee to execute your vision. So you destroyed everything out of jealousy. I protected my future." His composure shattered completely. "Stratton offered me a VP position with equity. Real equity. Not the scraps you throw at people who build your empire while you take all the credit. And yes, I used what I knew about your father, about your weaknesses. Because you taught me that success requires ruthlessness. I learned from the best." The words cut deep, not because they were entirely wrong, but because they held uncomfortable truth. She had built Sahara Lux with iron control, had struggled to delegate, to trust, to share power. Her father's betrayal had taught her that control was the only safety, but it had also isolated her, made her vulnerable in ways she hadn't realized. Vivian stood abruptly. "I'm calling my lawyer. This is harassment." "Sit down." Jae-won's voice was quiet, but carried enough threat to freeze her in place. "You're not calling anyone until we're done. You conspired to commit securities fraud, corporate espionage, and defamation. The evidence is overwhelming. You can cooperate now and maybe negotiate reduced charges, or you can fight this and lose everything. Your choice." The boards erupted. Questions, accusations, damage control strategies flying. But through it all, Lindy felt Jae-won's presence beside her, steady and sure. United front, partners in every sense. When security finally escorted Thabo and Vivian out, both visibly shaken and facing criminal charges, Lindy felt simultaneously triumphant and hollow. They'd won this battle, exposed the traitors, protected their companies, but the cost, the betrayal, the revelation of her own leadership flaws, the exhaustion of constant crisis, pressed down like a weight she wasn't sure she could carry. "Come with me," Jae-won said quietly, taking her hand. "There's something I need to show you." He drove them to a building she didn't recognize. Modern architecture, glass and steel, under construction but nearly complete. They took the elevator to the top floor, emerging onto an unfinished rooftop terrace with sweeping views of Boston's harbor and skyline. "What is this?" she asked. "Our future." He gestured to the building around them. "If you want it, I signed the lease last week before everything imploded. Was going to surprise you after we secured Casa Bellini. This is where I imagined Eclipse Atelier, our merged company, would be headquartered. Space for both Sahara Lux and Hanul teams. Room to grow. A place that's ours. Not mine or yours, but ours together." Her throat tightened. "You named it already, Eclipse Atelier?" "Where two worlds meet and create something extraordinary." His hands framed her face. "That's us, Lindiwe, African and Asian. Your vision and mine, your strength and my innovation. Together, we're unstoppable. Separately," he swallowed hard. "Separately, we're just two scared people trying not to repeat our parents' mistakes." Jae-won, "I know this is fast. I know we're in the middle of crisis. I know my family's history, and mine is tangled up in pain you'll probably never fully forgive." His eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "But I also know I love you. Know that losing you would destroy me more completely than any business failure. Know that I want to build this with you, not just the company, but a life. A future. Everything." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Alessandro Bellini's name flashed on the screen. Jae-won answered on speaker. "Signor Bellini." "Jae-won. Lindiwe. I hope you're together. I've been trying to reach you both." Alessandro's voice carried concern. "I've seen the news, the allegations against your companies, the rumors about conspiracy and fraud. I need to know, is any of this true? Because if Casa Bellini partners with companies embroiled in scandal..." "It's not true," Lindy said firmly. "We've been sabotaged by people we trusted. We have proof. We're exposing them and pursuing legal action. Our companies are sound, our reputations will be restored, and the partnership we're proposing is built on genuine synergy and vision, not fraud or deception." "And your personal relationship?" Alessandro asked bluntly. "Is it true you're romantically involved? Because some are saying this entire merger is just elaborate romantic entanglement rather than sound business." Lindy and Jae-won looked at each other. This was it. The moment to choose. Deny their relationship and protect the deal, or admit the truth and risk everything. Jae-won's hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Choose us," his eyes said. "Choose this." "It's true," Lindy said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Jae-won and I are in love, but that doesn't diminish the strategic brilliance of merging Sahara Lux and Hanul. If anything, it strengthens it. We're not just business partners. We're building something that transcends traditional corporate alliances, something that proves love and ambition aren't mutually exclusive." Alessandra was quiet for a long moment. "You're either very brave or very foolish." "Maybe both," Jae-won admitted. "But we're committed. To each other, to this partnership, to building something revolutionary with Casa Bellini. The question is, are you still interested, or have we lost your trust?" Meet me in my Boston hotel tomorrow. Noon, both of you. We'll discuss terms. Alessandro's voice warmed slightly. And Lindiwe? Jae-won. I admire your honesty. In my experience, the best partnerships, business and personal, are built on truth even when it's inconvenient. Domani. The call ended. They stared at each other, breathless, barely believing they'd survived another crisis. We need to address the media, Jae-won said. Control the narrative before it controls us. They called a joint press conference for that afternoon, Sahara Lux and Eclipse Atelier presenting a united front. The conference room was packed with journalists, cameras, competitors watching hungrily for any sign of weakness. Lindy and Jae-won stood together at the podium, shoulders touching, presenting the evidence of Thabo and Vivian's conspiracy with clinical precision. They answered questions with practiced ease, deflecting attacks, clarifying their position. But it was Jae-won's closing statement that stunned the room into silence. I want to address the rumors about my relationship with Lindiwe Khumalo directly, he said, his voice clear and unwavering. Yes, we're romantically involved. Yes, our companies are merging. And no, one doesn't diminish the other. Lindiwe is the most brilliant strategist I've ever met. She's built Sahara Lux from nothing into a global force through sheer determination and vision. She challenges me, inspires me, makes me want to be better in business and in life. He turned to look at her, and the tenderness in his eyes made cameras flash frantically. She's not just my business partner. She's my future, my everything, and I'm proud to build this empire with her. The room erupted in questions, but Lindy heard none of them. She could only stare at Jae-won, at this man who just declared his love in front of the world's media, who'd risked everything to choose her publicly and completely. I love you too, she whispered, not caring who heard. I choose you too. All of it, the partnership, the future, everything. He kissed her in front of everyone, tender and fierce and claiming, and let the cameras capture proof that some gambles were worth every risk. The board votes came 2 days later. Sahara Lux's board approved the EI merger with Hanoul by a narrow margin, 6 votes to 5. The dissenting voices cited concerns about rushed decisions and romantic entanglement clouding judgment. But the majority saw the strategic brilliance, the combined market power, the revolutionary potential. Hanoul's board was equally divided but ultimately approved, swayed by Jae-won's passionate defense of the partnership and his public commitment to Lindy's vision. Alessandro Bellini sealed the deal with characteristic Italian flair, hosting a celebration dinner at his Boston hotel where he toasted their success, their courage, and their love with expensive wine and knowing smiles. You remind me of my wife and me, 40 years ago, Alessandro said, raising his glass. Everyone said we were too young, too impulsive, too in love to run a business empire together. They were right about the love part, but it turned out love didn't make us weak. It made us unstoppable. I see that same fire in you both. Use it well. A week later, Lindy and Jae-won stood on the rooftop terrace of their new headquarters. Eclipse Atelier officially launched, teams from both companies integrating, the future stretching before them with dizzying possibility. The Boston skyline glittered in the evening light, harbor waters reflecting gold and rose. It was romantic and perfect, and everything Lindy had never let herself dream of having. No more running, Jae-won said quietly, pulling her into his arms. No more hiding who we are or what we want. Just this, us, building something extraordinary together. No more running, she agreed, tilting her face up for his kiss. No more hiding. They swayed together on that rooftop, holding each other as the city buzzed below, and Lindy felt something shift permanently inside her chest. Trust, hard-won and fragile and real. She'd given him everything, her company, her body, her bruised and battered heart, and he'd proven himself worthy of all of it. I have something for you, he said, pulling back slightly. From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box. "It's not what you think. Not yet, anyway. I'm not proposing. We're not there yet. But I needed you to have this." He opened the box to reveal a necklace, exquisitely crafted, blending African and Korean design elements in stunning harmony. Gold and beadwork, traditional Korean knots and South African patterns, creating something entirely unique. "I had it commissioned," he explained softly, lifting it from the box. "To symbolize us. To remind you that our two worlds don't have to conflict. They can create something beautiful. Something that honors both our heritages while building something new." Tears pricked her eyes as he fastened it around her neck with gentle reverence. His fingers lingered on her skin, tracing her collarbone, and when he leaned in to press a tender kiss to where the necklace rested, she felt cherished in ways she'd never experienced. "It's perfect," she whispered. "You're perfect." "I'm not." His smile was crooked, self-aware. "I'm flawed and complicated and carrying baggage I'll probably never fully unpack. But with you," his voice roughened, "with you, I want to try, want to be better, want to build something that matters beyond profit margins and market share." "We will." She kissed him deeply, pouring everything she felt into that connection. "We already are." They named their merged empire Eclipse Atelier officially at the launch party 2 weeks later, a celebration that brought together investors, competitors, media, and the teams who'd make their vision reality. African prints and Korean minimalism blended in the decor. Traditional music from both cultures played. Food honored both heritages. It was a statement. We are different, and that's our strength. Months blurred together in a haze of work and love and building something extraordinary. They split leadership responsibilities, Lindy handling African market expansion and cultural partnerships, Jae-won overseeing Asian operations and design innovation. They fought occasionally, passionately, about strategic directions and decision-making, but they always came back to center, to each other, to the knowledge that they were stronger together. Casa Bellini's partnership exceeded every projection. The fusion of African luxury, Korean innovation, and Italian heritage created a brand that dominated global markets and redefined what modern luxury meant. But more than business success, they built a relationship that defied every expectation. Love letters written in Korean and Zulu, traditions shared and blended, families slowly, painfully brought together despite historical wounds. A future that honored their pasts while refusing to be defined by them. On a rooftop 2 years later, not 18 months, not 6 months, but 2 full years of building and growing and loving, Lindy and Jae-won stood overlooking their empire during a rare quiet moment. "You're mine tonight," Jae-won murmured, echoing his words from that first night in Paris, pulling her close as the city lights painted them in gold. "I'm yours every night," Lindy promised, sealing it with a kiss that tasted like forever. "And you're mine, always." Eclipse Atelier's Boston headquarters glowed behind them. Milan Fashion Week beckoned next month. Casa Bellini was launching a new collection inspired by their partnership. And somewhere in Lindy's desk drawer, hidden but not secret, sat a small velvet box Jae-won had left there last week with a note. "When you're ready. No rush. I'll wait forever if that's what you need. Jay." She wasn't ready yet. But she would be. Because she'd learned that love didn't make you weak. It made you brave enough to risk everything for something extraordinary. Love is. If you're still with us after this emotional roller coaster, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We want to know how far Lindy and Jae-won's story traveled. Across the world. This is what Afro-Seoul TV promises. Stories between two worlds, beyond all borders that are true tearjerkers, heartbreakers, and game changers. If their journey made your heart race, your eyes water, and your soul believe in love that conquers everything, smash that like button and subscribe, because we have so many more epic Afro-Korean love stories to share. This is just the beginning. 2 years and 3 months after that first electric moment in Paris, Lindiwe Khumalo Yoon, she'd hyphenated after the private ceremony 6 months ago, stood in Eclipse Atelier's design studio, one hand resting on her barely visible baby bump, the other holding fabric swatches for their new collection. Jae-won entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of the ginger tea that helped with her morning sickness. He set them down and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands covering hers on their growing child. "How are you feeling?" he murmured against her neck. "Tired. Happy. Terrified." She leaned back into his warmth, wondering how we're going to manage a baby and 2 companies and all of this. The same way we've managed everything else. He turned her gently to face him, eyes soft with devotion. Together, one day at a time, building something extraordinary. She kissed him, tender and sweet and full of promise. Their daughter would be born into a legacy built on love and ambition, African heritage and Korean tradition, 2 worlds that had collided and created something revolutionary. Outside, the world waited. Competitors challenged, markets shifted, new crises loomed. But here, wrapped in each other with the future growing inside her and their empire stretching toward tomorrow, Lindiwe felt only certainty. They'd chosen each other, chosen love over fear, chosen partnership over pride, and they were just beginning.